Imagine standing at the edge of a frozen valley nearly 30,000 years ago. The wind slices through the air. Snow crunches beneath bare feet wrapped only in animal hide. Somewhere in the distance, a herd of wild bison begins to run. Then, without warning, a small group of humans charges after them. Not with horses, not with metal weapons, just wooden spears, stone points, and bodies that refuse to quit. One hunter stumbles over jagged rocks, gets back up instantly, and keeps running. Another lifts a spear that weighs far more than anything used in modern sports. Hours later, after miles of relentless pursuit, the exhausted animal finally collapses. Not because it was faster, but because the humans simply outlasted it. Think about that for a second. Most of us struggle after climbing a few flights of stairs. Yet these people crossed mountains, carried heavy carcasses, survived brutal winters, and woke up the next morning ready to do it all again. So what made them different? Were ancient humans naturally stronger than us? Did they possess some lost genetic advantage? Or is the real answer hiding somewhere far more surprising? For years, scientists believed the explanation was simple. Life was harder, so people became tougher. It sounds convincing, but then archaeologists began uncovering skeletons that raised uncomfortable questions. Their bones weren't just healthy, they were shaped in ways rarely seen today. Their muscles had left unmistakable marks. Their entire bodies seemed built for a world that no longer exists. And the deeper researchers looked, the stranger the mystery became. At first glance, the answer seems almost too obvious. Ancient humans were stronger because they had no choice. Every single day demanded movement. There were no cars, no grocery stores, no machines to carry heavy loads. If a family needed food, someone had to track an animal for miles. If they needed firewood, they carried it home on their backs. Even finding clean water could mean walking long distances over rough ground. Imagine living in a world where skipping a day's work didn't just mean losing a paycheck. It could mean going hungry. Archaeological evidence paints exactly that picture. Skeletons from prehistoric hunter-gatherers often show remarkably thick arm and leg bones. Researchers notice something fascinating. Bones respond to repeated stress, becoming denser and stronger over time. These weren't the bones of people who occasionally exercised. They belong to people whose entire lives were exercise. The clues don't stop there. Stone tools recovered from ancient campsites reveal repeated cutting, scraping, lifting, and hammering. Wear patterns on joints suggest constant climbing, crouching, throwing, and carrying. Even children likely develop strength early by gathering food, collecting wood, and helping move supplies. In many ways, their daily routine resembled an endless series of full-body workouts, except there were no rest days and no shortcuts. That explanation fits the evidence remarkably well, or at least, most of it. Because when scientists began comparing ancient skeletons with those of today's elite athletes, people who spend years training at the highest level, they found something unexpected. In several cases, prehistoric humans still came out ahead. That shouldn't have happened. If hard work alone explains their strength, why were even modern professionals struggling to match bodies built tens of thousands of years ago? Suddenly, the mystery wasn't solved, it had only just begun. For a long time, one idea dominated the conversation. Ancient humans looked stronger because only the strongest survived. It sounds logical. In a world filled with predators, freezing winters, and constant danger, weaker individuals would have had a much harder time reaching adulthood. Over thousands of generations, natural selection should have favored tougher, more powerful bodies. Case closed. Or so it seemed. Then researchers started asking a different question. Instead of looking only at survival, they looked at how ancient people actually moved through their world. That's when the story took an unexpected turn. Picture an archaeologist carefully lifting a 20,000-year-old skeleton from the earth. Every bone tells a story. The shape of the hips reveals miles of walking. The shoulders hint at thousands of spear throws. The spine records years of carrying heavy loads. Even the tiny attachment points where muscles once connected have become clues. These weren't simply strong people. They were bodies that had been molded by a lifetime of constant challenge. But here's where things get interesting. Modern athletes train harder than almost anyone else alive. Olympic rowers, marathon runners, wrestlers, and weightlifters push their bodies to extraordinary limits. Yet many of them specialize in one type of movement. A runner builds endurance. A lifter builds power. A swimmer develops efficiency in water. Ancient humans had no such luxury. Before breakfast, they might climb steep hills, sprint after prey, lift massive carcasses, dig for roots, build shelters, and defend themselves. All in the same day. Their strength wasn't isolated. It was everywhere. That realization challenged the old assumption that survival alone created stronger humans. Something about their entire way of living was shaping bodies in ways that modern training rarely does. And if that was true, what exactly was happening inside those bodies that made them so incredibly resilient? The next clues would come not from ancient campsites, but from the surprising way the human body responds to stress itself. By now, the mystery had become impossible to ignore. Were ancient humans truly stronger, or were archaeologists simply being fooled by old bones? To answer that question, researchers turned to an unlikely source of evidence: the skeletons themselves. Imagine a laboratory where a prehistoric arm bone, buried for thousands of years, is placed inside a high-resolution scanner. Every ridge, every curve, every microscopic layer is measured with incredible precision. The goal wasn't just to see how big the bone was. It was to discover the kind of life that had shaped it. The scientists expected ancient bones to be stronger than average. What they didn't expect was how much stronger. When they compared the arm bones of prehistoric hunter-gatherers with those of modern people, including highly trained endurance athletes, they found something astonishing. In several studies, the ancient bones showed levels of strength and resistance that modern lifestyles rarely produce. These weren't just healthy skeletons. They were skeletons built under years of relentless physical stress. At first, the results seemed almost unbelievable. So researchers checked for other explanations. Was it genetics? Better nutrition? Different body sizes? They compared populations from different regions and different time periods. Again and again, a similar pattern appeared. The people who lived by hunting, gathering, climbing, digging, carrying, and throwing had the most robust skeletons. Then another clue emerged. As farming spread across the world, those exceptionally strong bones began to change. Skeletons from early farming communities often showed a gradual decline in overall bone strength, even though those people still worked incredibly hard. That was unexpected. If physical labor alone created these powerful bodies, why would strength begin fading after one of humanity's biggest lifestyle changes? Instead of closing the case, the archaeological evidence opened an even bigger mystery. What was it about the hunter-gatherer way of life that even centuries of farming couldn't fully replace? To get closer to the answer, we need to leave the laboratory for a moment and meet someone who lived this reality every single day. Imagine a young hunter from a prehistoric tribe just as the first light of dawn touches the horizon. He isn't preparing for a competition. He isn't trying to break a personal record. He's trying to make sure his family survives another week. His day begins with a journey across rough, uneven ground. Every step demands balance. Every climb tests his legs. Every sound in the forest could mean food or danger. Hours pass before the hunting party finally spots a herd of deer. No one charges immediately. They watch, they wait, they study the wind. One wrong move could send the animals disappearing over the hills, wasting an entire day's effort. When the moment finally comes, the chase begins. The hunter sprints, slows, climbs over rocks, crawls through brush, and throws his spear with every ounce of strength he has. Even after the hunt ends, the hardest work is still ahead. The animal must be carried home, often weighing more than a single person can comfortably lift. Think about that. For him, strength isn't measured by how much he can lift once. It's measured by how much he can keep doing after hours of exhaustion. And tomorrow, the cycle starts again. Generation after generation lives like his quietly shaped the human body. Every successful hunt rewarded endurance. Every heavy load strengthened bone. Every difficult season favored those who could recover and keep moving. But here's the fascinating part. Not every ancient community lived this way. Some hunted giant mammals across open plains. Others survived in dense forests or along rugged coastlines. Their worlds were completely different, yet many developed the same extraordinary resilience. Why were people separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, ending up with remarkably similar bodies? The answer was pointing toward a pattern far bigger than any single tribe. By this point, it might seem like we're telling a story about one group of ancient hunters. We're not. The deeper researchers looked, the more they realized this pattern stretched across continents, climates, and even species. Picture a map of the ancient world. Ice-covered Europe, the vast grasslands of Central Asia, the scorching savannas of Africa, the dense forests of Southeast Asia. These places couldn't have been more different, yet people living in each of them faced the same challenge: move or don't survive. The details changed, but the demands remained remarkably similar. Some communities climbed cliffs to gather bird eggs. Others paddled for hours across dangerous waters. Some tracked reindeer through snow. Others carried food beneath a burning sun. Different landscapes, different animals, the same human body adapting to relentless physical demands. But here's where the story grows even bigger. The pattern isn't unique to humans. Watch a wolf raised in the wild. Every hunt sharpens its muscles, balance, and endurance. Compare it with a wolf living safely in captivity, where food arrives without effort. They share nearly identical genetics, yet their bodies develop very differently because their lives demand different things. The same pattern appears in wild horses, chimpanzees, and countless other animals. Nature rewards bodies that constantly solve physical problems. Now think about our own history. For more than 95% of human existence, our ancestors lived as hunter-gatherers. Cities, agriculture, and modern technology occupy only the final chapter of a much longer story. Evolution spent hundreds of thousands of years shaping bodies for movement, adaptation, and endurance, not for chairs, cars, or screens. That changes everything. Maybe ancient humans weren't extraordinary because they possessed a body we've lost. Maybe they were extraordinary because they used the same body in ways we rarely do anymore. And if that's true, the greatest difference between them and us may not be hidden in our genes at all. It may be hidden in something far more ordinary and far more surprising. Of course, no mystery is complete without the exceptions. If ancient humans were generally so strong, why do archaeologists sometimes uncover skeletons that tell a very different story? Take the first farmers. When agriculture spread across many parts of the world around 10,000 years ago, people stopped following migrating herds and began settling in villages. You might expect their strength to increase. After all, farming meant hours of digging, planting, harvesting, and carrying heavy loads. But the bones tell another story. In many regions, early farming communities developed less robust skeletons than the hunter-gatherers who came before them. Their daily lives were still physically demanding, but the variety of movement had changed. Instead of climbing, sprinting, throwing, lifting, crawling, and walking for miles, many repeated the same tasks over and over. Their bodies adapted differently. Then there are the remarkable individuals who seem to break every rule. Some prehistoric skeletons belong to older adults with severe injuries, broken legs, damaged hips, even crushed skulls that had completely healed. By all logic, they shouldn't have survived, yet they did. Why? Because strength wasn't only measured in muscle. It also came from something less visible: cooperation. Families and tribes cared for injured members, shared food, and protected those who could no longer hunt. Survival depended on powerful communities just as much as powerful bodies. And that's the clue that changes everything. The strongest ancient human wasn't always the one with the biggest muscles. Sometimes, it was the one surrounded by the strongest social bonds. That unexpected insight points toward the final piece of the puzzle, one that connects biology, evolution, and human civilization in a way few people ever consider. So after all the skeletons, the hunting stories, the archaeological discoveries, and the surprising exceptions, we finally arrive at the real question: were ancient humans actually stronger than we are? The answer is both yes and no. Yes, not because they belonged to a different species or possessed some lost genetic superpower, and no, because the body that carried them across frozen plains is, in many ways, the very same body you carry today. That's the twist. For decades, people searched for a secret hidden in ancient DNA, but the strongest evidence points somewhere else entirely. The human body is remarkably adaptable. It constantly remodels itself to match the world it lives in. Bones become denser when they're heavily used. Muscles grow in response to repeated effort. Tendons, joints, balance, even the brain's movement patterns all change according to daily demands. Ancient humans didn't simply have stronger bodies. They built stronger bodies because their environment gave them no alternative. Every single day was training, not planned training, not 1 hour in a gym. Life itself was the workout. The hunt strengthened their legs. Carrying children strengthened their backs. Climbing cliffs strengthened their grip. Digging for roots strengthened their shoulders. Walking dozens of miles strengthened their hearts and lungs. Even surviving winter forced their bodies to become more resilient. Think about that for a second. Modern exercise is something we choose to fit into life. For ancient humans, movement was life. Suddenly, every clue falls into place. The powerful bones, the extraordinary endurance, the decline after agriculture, the similarities across continents. Even the exceptions. None of them point to a vanished race of superhumans. They point to a body that responds with astonishing precision to the challenges it faces. And perhaps that's the most surprising discovery of all. The greatest strength of ancient humans was never just their muscles. It was their relationship with the world around them. Their environment demanded resilience, so resilience came part of who they were. The human body wasn't designed to avoid challenge. It evolved because of it. And that means the real mystery was never what ancient humans had. It was what we've slowly stopped asking our own bodies to become. Now, return to that frozen valley where our story began. The hunter is still running. The wind still bites at his face. The ground is still uneven beneath his feet. His spear is still heavy in his hands. Somewhere ahead, the exhausted animal is beginning to slow down, not because it was weaker, but because the humans chasing it had learned something nature has always rewarded. They kept going. Thousands of years later, we look at those ancient footprints and imagine they belong to people fundamentally different from us. Almost superhuman, but they weren't. They laughed, feared, failed, got injured, protected their families, and worried about tomorrow just as we do. The greatest distance between us isn't written in our DNA. It's written in the worlds we inhabit. Civilization gave us comfort, safety, and extraordinary progress. Yet every convenience quietly removed one more challenge that once shaped the human body and mind. Maybe that's why ancient humans seem so powerful to us today. Not because they were born stronger, but because every sunrise demanded courage, every journey demanded endurance, and every meal had to be earned. In the end, the story of ancient human strength isn't really about the past. It's a reminder of what the human body and the human spirit becomes when survival isn't guaranteed, when adaptation is the only path forward, and when every single day asks one simple question: how strong are you willing to become?